Hey everybody, it's Pastor Scott, and I am here with Pastor Jonathan, and this is Real Talk. This is our weekly video check-in series. It's an opportunity for us to be able to connect with you in the community, to share what's going on within the walls of the church or outside in our community. Just a great way for us to connect with you. So this week, Pastor Jonathan and I are together because we are talking about life groups. And life groups is an amazing opportunity for us as a church to be able to grow in our relationship with each other. And so one of the things, and I want to share specifically how this came about first, and then I'm going to go through some questions with Jonathan. But our vision statement specifically talks about our ability to have spirit-filled relationships. And so I'm going to read this because I'm sorry I don't have it memorized, but it says, at Herndon United Methodist Church, we believe that God's love is real, active, and for everyone. Our vision is to live the teachings of Jesus so that everyone may know God's love and grow in spirit-filled relationships. And so one of the ways we've identified that we can grow in spirit-filled relationships is through our life groups. And so life groups is a way, it's not necessarily a Bible study, it's not necessarily a potluck. This is just a way for us to grow together. And that's really what Jesus wanted us to do. And so, Jonathan, as we get ready to talk more about life groups, is there anything you want to share about them?
Sure. So one of the things that we identified back a number of months ago is when we brought Scott onto our team. Before he was our associate pastor, he was our director of congregational care and adult discipleship. And one of the things that we talked through with Scott was, hey, what would it look like for us to have a discipleship plan for our whole congregation? And Scott's been working really hard on this the whole time that he's been a part of our community. And one of the things that we really started to identify in our church is that we have some pockets where we are doing really interesting and innovative stuff with the study of scriptures. And that's great. We have other places in our community where we're doing some great program-oriented kinds of activity and behavior. But the thing that kind of kept sticking out both to Scott and to me was that we don't have a really great concrete way for people to enter into our church and develop spirit-filled relationships with one another, where the entirety of why people gather is just for relational formation. And so that's really where this idea was birthed from. And the spirit behind it. And so as I get to play the role of interviewer today, and I'm excited for that, to talk with Scott a little bit more about some of the idea behind this and how this is going to play out this fall and beyond in our church. But that's really the heart of this, is how can we engage in that relational community formation that is so essential to being the body of Christ. One of the things that I think has happened in this time of I hope we're entering a post-pandemic time frame, but in the season of the COVID-19 pandemic, we had to pivot in a lot of different directions to be able to sustain our life in community and to grow our life in community in some new ways. But one of the things that I think maybe we lost a little bit of is that ability just to have frequent and constant relationship checkpoints, right? Where we're able to just touch base and say, like, how are you doing? How is your life? How is your soul? And just being able to grow in some of those capacities. And so I think that's a big part of what we're going to see coming into clarity and clear view here in the coming weeks and months. And so can I ask you some questions, Scott?
Love it. Let's rock and roll.
All right. So Scott, tell us, what's a life group?
So a life group is an opportunity for us to get together and grow in our role and our relationships with as not only becoming disciples, but also to serve in our community, but also serve alongside one another. There's opportunities for us to find ways that we can connect, but over the last couple of years, especially during the pandemic, we've lost that, like Jonathan said. So it's an opportunity for us to be able to grow and to be able to really look at being together in community as we grow as disciples. And so life group is specifically focused on that spirit-filled relationship. And so we want to grow those spirit-filled relationships with these life groups.
When I hear that, it connects so much with our vision, right? The idea of growing in spirit-filled relationships is a huge part of that. How do you see that becoming lived out? Like, how does that connect with our vision as these develop and grow?
So the main thing is that life groups, it just adds life to our church, and it adds an opportunity for us to enrich the relationships that we have. In our, as I shared earlier, in our vision statement, it says that God's, it's so that everyone may know and grow in God's love, and also grow in the spirit-filled relationships. And so for us to be able to connect outside of the sanctuary, outside of the walls of the church, or inside the walls of the church, depending on on what these life groups will do and where they'll meet. It just gives us an opportunity to be together, and I think that's the key thing, is that we want to have growth. We want to be accountable for each other, but we also want to support one another and make sure that we look forward at growing together as a group.
Sure. And I think a thing I might just add anecdotally to that is, it's very easy to make the connection of growing in spirit-filled relationships. That's pretty obvious in what we've talked about so far. But when I think about moments in my life when I've come to know God's love more clearly, it is often through others, right? Like there are occasions where I might be like out in the woods near a stream by myself, like on a spiritual retreat or something, where I know God's love independently. But more often than not, that comes into fruition through the relationships that are shared with people who I am invested in and who are invested in me. And I think that's a big part of this. So how are these life groups organized? Can you tell us a little bit about like what basically, like, so we have the basic idea of what a life group is. How are these constructed? Like, when do they meet? How do people get to be a part of a life group?
Yeah, so life groups are going to be constructed through a few different ways. It's going to be constructed based on location. We might have some people out in that Leesburg corridor that it makes more sense for them to meet because of where they live or where they work. It could be focused on day and time. Like maybe I'm only available Wednesday nights and Thursday nights. So I would look at those days and times to see what would fit within my schedule. It could also be based on where I am in life. Like we have some educators. It might be a great opportunity for educators to be together and grow, parents of young children, those that have students going into college. So we all have different parts in where we are in our relationships. And so they will meet weekly or bi-weekly. The more frequent we feel is the better, but we also understand we all get busy. But if we can meet at least weekly or bi-weekly, it really helps set the tone and grows the group and brings some camaraderie to the group as well. The group sizes are going to be roughly 6 to 12 people. That's really where we find the sweet spot. If you go a little bit over, it's not the end of the world. But as we grow those, the beauty of it is that we can break off and have two groups. So if we get to 16, 17 people, we might say, hey, now's a great time for this group that's doing board games. Maybe they split off and do another group as well. So it's going to be just a great opportunity for us to be able to connect and grow within that community.
And something I love about this is that, there are some groups that are really thematic. You mentioned the board game group. I love board games. I think that's super cool. There's some different thematic pieces that are orienting these, but the other thing that I think is really great is so much of, one of the strategic pursuits that we've been talking about for the last year is about being an intergenerational ministry. And so there are other groups where there's not like a specific, like, hey, you must, I think of roller coasters, you must be this tall to ride, you must be this old to participate or to pass or anything like that. A lot of these groups, there's going to be an opportunity to say, hey, you might be young or young at heart. You might be old or mature for your years, whatever it may be. And finding those ways for people to be able to come together, I think is the most important thing. So, Scott, I guess one thing I imagine we might be thinking about is like, okay, well, I've seen a Bible study. I've seen a program unfold. How is this different from some of those things that we've done previously?
Yeah, the beauty of it is there is no specific thing that a group has to do. It's just more about the relationships. What we hope these groups will do is to find ways to be able to connect into their faiths by maybe signing up to do a mission project together, or maybe taking on a study. Maybe if we do an Advent study in the church, this group decides, hey, let's be part of that. So there's really no specific goal or guideline for each group that they have to do these things. The main thing is that we want them to grow in their relationships, and like you said earlier, being able to be with each other and learn about each other's growth, and being accountable and supporting one another is really it can be a really beautiful thing. We talk a lot about covenant groups in our world. You have a covenant group, I belong to a covenant group, and they can be really life-altering and life-filling. And I think it's really important for us to remember that. So as we build these, there's no specific, you have to read 2 studies a year, and that's not what this is about. This is just about building relationships and being together.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful. And, I only can think of my own experience here at Herndon. When Kelly and I moved here, we'd been here for about a year, and and we realized, gosh, we really miss having that sort of small group connection, and so we started a small group of our own, and with a couple of folks from church. And what's been really cool about that is that for our family at least, like that's as much as anything the centering point of our life here. And I imagine that for many folks in our church community, like, you know, we've got people that have participated for a long time in United Women in Faith or United Methodist Men. We've got people who have done our Tuesday evening Bible studies, or who maybe have seen themselves be a part of this group or that group. And what I love about this is it doesn't take that away, right? Like those are still amazing opportunities for folks to get involved, but it really says, like, hey, what would it look like for me to be well known, intimately known, to be able to be vulnerable, to be able to be fully present with a small group of people, where all of a sudden that becomes the orientation of my life. And like we start in this place of, you know, we meet every so often, but maybe it translates into when we come to worship, we sit together. When we, you know, we find times to be able to go out to dinner together, or to do things in community together. I just think it has this really, really cool chance to become something where it becomes a sort of radical place of connection that also, by the way, anybody can come into. And maybe that's a good segue to our next idea here, which is what if somebody wants to join a life group? How would they go about doing that?
Yeah, so big date to keep on your calendars is August 21st. So we are having one service for all on that Sunday at 10 o'clock, and it will be in Doe Fellowship Hall. And after the service, starting at 11 o'clock or shortly thereafter, we will have a picnic, a potluck picnic, that will provide opportunities for us to learn more specifically about what groups are available, and there'll be ways for you to be able to sign up. And we want everybody in the church to be able to sign up for a life group, because we feel like it's really that important to your own spiritual development. So that's the first piece. Also, for those that will be online, there will be a brown bag lunch at 1 o'clock on the 21st, and there'll be a chance for you to be able to learn about the groups and how to sign up. And then after that, you can always go on the website, or you can reach out to myself at scott@herndonumc.net, and I will be happy to discuss with you or help you find a group that's for you.
That's awesome. Well, and from what I understand, Scott, even though we have a number of groups that are already forming and leaders selected, there's still an opportunity. If somebody were watching this and said, like, hey, I'm getting a nudge from the Holy Spirit, like, I need to be a group, like, I want to create a group. Is that still an option?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, if you're interested in maybe even being a co-leader, maybe there's already a group that's existing. There are some groups that are looking for co-leaders. We'd be glad to get you connected and make sure there's something that works for you timing-wise on your schedule, as well as geography, and also fits your interests. But if you have that nudge that you want to create a group that focuses on bridge, you want to play the game of bridge, or you want to play a different type of game, we are absolutely open to having you start that group. If you have questions about that, come and see me, because again, we do have some parameters, meeting weekly or bi-weekly, making sure we have at least 6 people to 12 people in the group, and then being able to make sure that it makes sense for everybody's schedule, and that it fits that way. But you can send me a note at scott@herndonumc.net, and I'd be glad to have that conversation with you.
So my big takeaways from this conversation are, hey, we've got this new opportunity, and these life groups are going to be a huge part of how we're orienting our life this upcoming season at Herndon United Methodist Church. So it's something to be ready for. I know one of the things Scott and I and our whole staff team have talked about is we really have a goal that every person in our church would be a part of a life group. That's a big goal, right? Like we've got a lot of people that are part of our community, but we are really believing that this is a part of God's call for us in this season of our life to find ways to be in connection and in community together. So I'm hearing the priority and the emphasis on life groups and what they are and how to be a part of one. I'm hearing August 21st is a big deal. That one service is going to be an opportunity to launch in. It's in many senses like our grand opening for the fall, and I'm excited. Well, Scott, I think this has been a great source of information. I'm really excited for your leadership here and for all that our community is going to be doing. I wonder, do you have a last word for us about life groups before we go?
I'm just really excited about it. You and I are part of a covenant group, and we know what that impact is for us. And to be able to provide something like that for the members of this community is just it's just an amazing opportunity for us to be able to help develop everybody's spiritual life. And so as we look at this year, if we ask you the question, how is it with your soul? I hope that a year from now, that the answer is a lot more clearer for you. And that's what these life groups will hopefully do.
Amen. Well, I'm excited. I hope you're excited. Again, Scott at HerndonUMC.net. If you have questions, if you want to join a group, or if you want to lead a group, that's a great way to be in touch. And Scott, thanks for all you do. Thank you for tuning in. Enjoy the day, and we'll look forward to connecting with you real soon. Peace.